In a quiet mountain village lived a young woman named Jane. She was known throughout the town for her brilliant mind and creative spirit. But Jane carried a heavy burden that no one could see. Her thoughts were like wild storms, constantly shifting from worry to fear to doubt. Every morning she would wake up with grand plans and beautiful dreams, but by evening, her mind had convinced her that none of it was possible. Jane worked at the village library, surrounded by thousands of books filled with wisdom and knowledge. Yet she felt trapped by the endless chatter in her own head. When she tried to write, her thoughts would whisper, "Your words are meaningless." When she considered applying for a better job in the city, her mind would flood with reasons why she would fail. When she thought about learning something new, doubt would creep in like fog, making everything seem impossible. One particularly difficult evening, Jane sat by her window, watching the rain. Her notebook lay open beside her, filled with half-finished poems and abandoned stories. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered to herself, "Why can't I control what goes on inside my head? Why do my own thoughts feel like my worst enemy?" The next morning, Jane noticed an elderly man sitting quietly in the corner of the library. He came every day at the same time, always reading the same worn book. His presence was different from others, while everyone else seemed restless and dist of peace. Racked, he raw curiosity finally, and Jane approached him. Overcame her shyness, dieted a strange sense. "Excuse me, sir. I see you here every day. What book captures your attention so completely?" she asked softly. The old man looked up with kind eyes that seemed to hold deep understanding. "Ah, young lady, I am not reading this book. I am practicing." Jane looked confused. "Practicing what?" "I am learning to master the art of directing my thoughts, rather than being directed by them," he replied with a gentle smile. "My name is Arjun, and like you, I once lived as a prisoner in my own mind." Jane's heart skipped a beat. How could he know her struggle so clearly? Arjun continued, "I can see it in your eyes, child. The same restless energy I once carried. The same battle between dreams and doubts. Tell me, do you believe your thoughts control you? Or do you control your thoughts?" Jane sat down across from him, feeling as though she had been waiting her whole life for this conversation. "I feel like my thoughts control everything. They tell me I'm not good enough, that I'll never succeed, that I should just accept a small, quiet life. I try to think positively, but the negative thoughts always seem stronger." Arjun nodded knowingly. Most people live their entire lives believing they are their thoughts. But this is the greatest illusion of all. You are not your thoughts, Jane. You are the observer of your thoughts. And once you understand this difference, everything changes. He opened his weathered book and showed her a simple diagram. Imagine your mind is like a vast sky, and your thoughts are like clouds passing through. Some clouds are dark and stormy, others are light and peaceful. But the sky itself remains unchanged. The sky does not become the cloud, does it? Jane shook her head, beginning to grasp something profound. Your true self is like that sky, peaceful, expansive and unchanging. The worried thoughts, the fearful thoughts, the doubtful thoughts, they are simply clouds passing through your awareness. When you learn to observe them without becoming them, you discover your power. Arjun closed the book gently and looked directly into Jane's eyes. "Let me show you something practical. Right now, what thoughts are running through your mind?" Jane paused, becoming aware of her mental chatter. "I'm thinking that this sounds too simple to work. I'm wondering if you're just another person giving me false hope. I'm also thinking about all the times I've tried to change and failed." "Perfect," Arjun smiled. "Now, who is noticing these thoughts? Who is watching them come and go?" Jane fell silent, a spark of recognition flickering in her consciousness. I'm watching them. Exactly. That part of you that can observe your thoughts is your true power. It is calm, aware, and always present. This is what I practice every day. Not fighting my thoughts, not trying to stop them, but simply watching them like a scientist observing an experiment. Over the following weeks, Arjun taught Jane a simple but powerful technique. Every morning she would spend 10 minutes sitting quietly, observing whatever thoughts arose without judging them or trying to change them. When worry appeared, she would silently note, "Worry is here." When doubt crept in, she would acknowledge, "Doubt is visiting. Inspiration is flowing at." When creative inspiration sparked, she would observe first. Jane struggled terribly. Her mind seemed more chaotic than ever. Thoughts crashed into each other like waves in a storm. But Arjun reminded her, the storm was always there. Now you are simply becoming aware of it. Awareness is the first step to freedom. Slowly, something remarkable began to happen. Jane noticed that thoughts truly were temporary visitors. The anxious thought that felt so overwhelming at 9 in the morning would be completely gone by noon, replaced by different thoughts entirely. She began to see patterns. Her mind was most restless when she was tired. Her creative thoughts flowed strongest in the early evening. Her fearful thoughts appeared most often when she was about to try something new. 1 month later, Jane made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She submitted 3 of her poems to a literary contest in the capital city. When the familiar flood of doubtful thoughts arose, she simply observed them with curiosity rather than being swept away by them. "Look at that," she said to herself with growing confidence. "Fear of rejection is visiting again. How interesting." The thought lost its power over her. 2 months passed. Jane received a letter that made her hands tremble. She had won second place in the contest, but more importantly, she realized that whether she had won or lost, she had already achieved something far greater. She had learned to master the relationship with her own mind. Standing in the library where her transformation began, Jane looked for Arjun to share her news, but his usual corner sat empty. The librarian mentioned he had moved away the previous week, leaving only a small note addressed to Jane. The note read, "Dear Jane, the greatest teachers appear when the student is ready to learn and disappear when the lesson is complete. You now carry the same power I once shared with you. Use it wisely and remember to pass it forward when the time comes." The master of thoughts becomes the master of destiny. Jane smiled, understanding that her real journey was just beginning. Jane's story reminds us of a powerful truth that changes everything once we truly understand it. We are not our thoughts. We are the observers of our thoughts. Like clouds passing through an endless sky, our worries, fears, and doubts are temporary visitors in the vast space of our awareness. When we learn to watch them with curiosity instead of being swept away by them, we discover our true power. The technique is simple but life-changing. Spend a few minutes each day observing your thoughts without judgment. When anxiety visits, simply notice it. When doubt appears, acknowledge its presence. When inspiration flows, observe it with wonder. This practice transforms your relationship with your own mind, from prisoner to master. Jane won that contest, but her greatest victory was learning that she could choose which thoughts to follow and which to let pass like clouds in the sky. You have this same power within you right now. Your thoughts do not define you. Your awareness of them does. If this story touched something deep inside you, share it with someone who needs to remember their own power. Subscribe to join us on this journey of inner mastery, because the moment you begin observing your thoughts, instead of being controlled by them, your transformation begins. Start today. Your mind is waiting for you to take back control.